Welcome to IVF This, episode 149, IVF and Unapologetic. Hello, my beautiful friends. I hope you are all doing so well today. This one's going to be a short one because I want you to return to it if it resonates for you time and time again, because Lord knows I can use all the reminders of what I'm going to talk about all the time, okay? So the reason for this episode is I was skimming some Psychology Today articles. I get like this weekly summary about their top articles, and one in particular a few weeks ago caught my eye, and it was called Regain Your Power by Silence, which really talks about how women apologize more than men. Of course, this topic comes zero surprise to anyone listening to this podcast, but what hit me and really got me thinking about this in this episode was that the line, "Women apologize even when nothing was done that requires an apology." I read that over and over and over, and I thought about it over and over and over, and I started thinking about how often I apologize. I created a note in my notes app, and I counted how many I'm sorry's or similar variations for one outing. It was like a grocery store stop and then a couple of other errands. I said sorry, or those variants, 8 times. 8 in a 3-ish hour span. And if you look at research on this, I'm very well within the norm. Like, I'm not an outlier at all. The reasons I apologized? So glad you asked. I thought I was in someone's way. I asked a clarifying question at the pharmacy. Someone bumped into me. I didn't bump into them. They bumped in. Oh, sorry. Right? I started seeing it more and more on social media. So many women will say, "Oh, I'm sorry for how I look," or "Please excuse how I look," or "My house is just a mess," or something. Like, all of those are forms of apologies. When I really started looking at this stuff, when I tell you my flabber was gasted, when I really took a look at my interactions from this vantage point of apologizing. And then, because I always have you guys and what you're going through kind of in the back of my mind, I thought back to when I was going through IVF and all of the years of infertility. And I likely apologized for things like missing work because of medical appointments, excusing myself to go to the bathroom so I could take medication, apologizing for what my body, quote unquote, could not do, asking questions from medical assistants, from the pharmacy, things like that, apologizing for crying because I was scared out of my mind about an upcoming test, awaiting a test result, or because I was grieving, or because just the uncertainty and the emotional weight of it all. Now, when I was thinking about all of this, I was thinking about the view I have for myself, because it didn't really match, right? I feel like I'm a fairly, if not very assertive person, right? I'm well read, I'm educated, I'm informed, and I still have this unconscious bias towards apologizing. Most of the time for literally nothing. And it's not our fault, right? There is an enormous emphasis on this from a social and cultural perspective. Over centuries, we've been socialized to do this, so it's not going to go away quickly or easily. But I want to be less apologetic, just overall. Now, I know my husband listens to this podcast and he might be balking at the idea that I am apologetic just in general. And to that I say, I love you, and charm is one of the many reasons you fell in love with me too. But jokes aside, I want to be more aware when I am apologizing, what I'm apologizing for, so I can become more discerning with my apologies. Not that I'm never going to apologize again, because if the impact of something you do or don't do, not the intent behind it, but the impact, if that hurts someone, apologize. I'm sorry is always a connector. It is always a softener. But the way we, women, apologize, it's like we're handing out leaflets on Madison Avenue or something. We're just handing them out to everybody. And it's wholly unnecessary. It's an unnecessary use of our time, of our mental and emotional energy. And the only purpose it serves is to perpetuate that unconscious belief that our existence is an inconvenience. And that's what I'm done with. So here's a list of the things that I am done apologizing for. Asking questions, especially when it pertains to me, my family members, my health, my finances. Having an opinion. Lord knows I have enough of those. Not knowing what I want or need exactly, but knowing I want or need something. Choosing to take care of myself. Getting sick. I apologize for getting sick. I have a chronic asthma. It's some days, some weeks, some months, very poorly controlled. I get sick often. And when I get sick, especially with asthma, I'm down for several days, and I'm done apologizing for that, right? I can apologize for the inconvenience. I can apologize for additional burden that's placed on other people, but being sick, I don't have to apologize for that anymore. Things that excite me or that I'm really obsessed with or really excited to share, saying no. No is a complete sentence. Changing my mind about something. My physical appearance. The way my home or my car looks. Things that are not my responsibility or completely outside of my control. Feeling an emotion. Crying, for goodness sake. I think that tears are as natural as breathing, and I don't see any of us judging ourselves for breathing or apologizing for breathing, yet we act like showing an emotion is an embarrassing thing. And I want to be really respectful of people with whom cultures or other social pressures, where there are groups of people with whom showing emotion is very often weaponized against them. Black women and anger, one of the first to come to mind, right? Anger is a normal and natural response, normal and natural emotion, yet the angry Black woman trope has been weaponized for centuries. Women in general, for centuries, were labeled as hysterical for showing really any outward emotion, right? And it's still prevalent in today's society when emotional expressions like anger or frustration, tears, whatever, is a quote unquote hormonal thing. Like, I'm done with this shit. So I want to know from you, what are you done apologizing for? Think of how often you are apologizing and for what? What is the intention of your apology? Or was it just a knee-jerk response, a knee-jerk reflex? The years of infertility and IVF that I went through were literally the most challenging times and periods of my life. And I'm sure that that is true for most, if not all of you as well. So why would we expect ourselves to apologize for trying to get through, navigate, traverse, or grieve this experience? We wouldn't let our best friend apologize for carrying an enormously heavy load like this. Why do we expect it of ourselves? Or in some case, demand it for ourselves? Why do we hold ourselves to a standard of, yeah, I'm going through this really terrifying, uncertain, highly demanding period of time, but I need to do that with a smile plastered across my face and only positivity, or I'm doing it wrong? No, it doesn't make any sense. It is not a human thing. That is not a human expectation to have on yourself. It's not a realistic expectation to have on yourself. You are a fully fleshed out person who has dealt or been dealt a situation in which there are no guarantees. There's no policies or procedures for how you, as a person, individually should deal with this, right? So no more apologizing for being human in a really hard situation. You don't have to be an asshole about things, but you also don't have to apologize. And that is what I want you guys to think about this week. And I hope you have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of IVF This. If you like what you've heard, click subscribe and follow to make sure you don't miss an episode. And if you want to learn more, head over to www.ivfthiscoaching.com to learn how to work together.